I'm not a fan of Meghan.
Yeah.
I'm not a fan, and I wasn't right from the beginning. I think poor Harry is being led around by his nose.
Welcome to WatchMojoUK, and today we'll be counting down our picks for the top 10 unhinged Piers Morgan Uncensored moments.
Oof, you've got me another one.
Tick it off your bingo.
Fantastic.
Lovely.
Before we begin, we publish new content every day, so be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos.
For this list, we're looking at the most fiery and the most bizarre interviews on Piers Morgan's latest talk show. Let us know in the comments whether you tune in to Uncensored. Number 10. Rees-Mogg for PM. John Lydon, the Sex Pistols' former frontman, may not be the first person you turn to for political advice. But this was July 2022, with the UK government in the midst of one crisis of many, and nobody knew who was going to follow Boris Johnson.
I know this is like way out, and he's probably not even in the runnings, right? Is Rees-Mogg.
Really?
Right?
First, Lydon says he thinks Johnson is a teddy bear, a weird thing to say even if you are one of his supporters. And then, when asked to give his verdict on who Boris Johnson's replacement should be, Lydon suggests wannabe Victorian Jacob Rees-Mogg.
I love that World War II respect, put Britain first attitude he has.
Rees-Mogg was ultimately promoted under Liz Truss to business secretary a few months later, and then, after her catastrophic downfall, resigned from the cabinet.
I tell you what I
think he's just genuinely a nice person.
Number 9. Steak. Many times during his GMB days, Morgan went after the vegans, famously once pretending to vomit a vegan sausage roll live on TV. Very mature.
I'm not throwing my toys out the pram right now, Piers. I'm loving this, to be honest.
What are you loving?
I'm loving this open conversation that we're having.
In late 2022, Morgan got an animal rebellion activist on to grill them over their tactics, and the whole thing was farcical. Not only was the vegan on the show being belligerent with Piers because of his track record, but Piers eventually broke out a steak to eat in front of his interviewee.
Won't need any of his gruel. Let's put that
Fantastic.
to one side, but I will have a bit of steak just to...
You didn't salt it, though.
It's an obnoxious thing to do, and embarrassingly for Piers, vegan Nathan didn't actually care about people choosing to eat steak around him. It was a pointless exercise, really.
You see, all you've achieved is you've made me want to do this. Just eat a
That's
lovely...
absolutely fine. You go for it.
Number 8. Billy McFarland.
The promoter behind the botched Fire Music Festival in the Bahamas has been sentenced now to 6 years in prison.
Notorious convicted fraudster Billy McFarland was bizarrely invited onto the show to talk about his plans for a second Fire Festival, called Pirate.
As crazy as it sounds for me, sitting here looking back at all the terrible decisions I made, I truly thought that I was going to pull off this event.
The first Fire Festival was an absolute disaster, a scam that got way too much attention and landed McFarland in federal prison. This interview came soon after his release in spring 2022, when he made it clear he'd lost all his original investors and was still trying to launch a follow-up event. Isn't it a bit irresponsible of Piers Morgan to get somebody on his show who's defrauded people out of millions of dollars to hawk his next big project? Why not get a regular job?
I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions is even if the festival succeeded, I still would have gone to jail.
Number 7. Prince Harry.
It doesn't stop, does it? Just interview after series after... But it's just never ending.
Is Prince Harry Piers Morgan's mortal enemy? Probably, although it's doubtful Prince Harry has spent anywhere near as much time dwelling on what Piers is up to.
Says there's only so many revelations the public can stomach. I think we may have exceeded that, judging by the groan in my guts this evening.
Upon the release of Harry's tell-all memoir Spare in January 2023, Piers Morgan decided to spend a full hour live fact-checking it, going to bat for the royal family, a bunch of people who also almost certainly spend no time thinking about Piers Morgan.
Now he's just a gossiping gutter snipe, selling out his family to the highest bidders.
He was furious about the idea of Prince Harry writing such a book and giving various interviews. No interview for Piers, though.
Anyway, his venomous memoir Spare, or Spare Me as I've renamed it, finally hit the shelves today.
Piers would have been spared having to read the book if he just didn't read it. Number 6. Just Stop Oil. Following the high-profile attack on a Van Gogh painting by Just Stop Oil campaigners, Piers was quick to get some of them on the show.
Can't get cheaper than free, all right? Okay? Renewables are 9 times cheaper than fossil fuels.
Renewables are not free. We spend 15 billion subsidising renewables in this country.
We spend £236 million a week
subsidising. Indeed, more than once he's had them on there when their controversial protests have attracted attention, along with a bunch of climate change deniers for balance. It's a volatile issue, that's for sure, and people on all sides come across badly in these on-screen debates.
I'm really getting against your methodology.
But it works, doesn't it?
I don't think it does.
There were explosive arguments that Piers had to intervene in because they got a bit too rowdy. But then the conversation continued to get out of hand, with everybody talking over each other.
You know it works. You're a journalist. You've done your research. You know this.
Let me finish.
We wouldn't be on here if this disruption hadn't happened.
Let me answer.
Number 5. Raw liver. A popular TikTok influencer, the Liver King, credited his physique to the consumption of unprocessed meat products like raw liver and got wildly famous online doing so.
I'm making this video to apologize because I f***ed up.
But then in December 2022, it came out that while the Liver King did enjoy this absurd diet, he was also on another diet of numerous steroids.
I would say I've achieved 90% of my physical growth, of my physical success, without any kind of PEDs whatsoever.
Shortly after the Liver King confessed to being on steroids, he was interviewed by Piers Morgan, who decided to try out the diet himself and eat some raw liver on air.
I've got some here, and I'm going to have some.
Piers Morgan eats liver with the Liver King. You know
what? It doesn't taste too bad. I'm not squeamish about food. I'll pretty well eat anything.
Remarkably, Morgan didn't hate the raw liver, though he did say he couldn't imagine that being the only thing he ever ate. Number 4. Jordan Peterson. Polarizing psychologist and self-help guru Jordan Peterson appeared on Uncensored for an hour-long interview in which he touched on many topics.
Husbands lie to their wives and parents lie to their children, and the totalitarian state is actually the grip of the lie. And so, and people will certainly go along with that. I mean we're seeing that emerge here with cancel culture. It's like lie or else.
Yeah.
Piers wasn't afraid to ask difficult questions, as ever, including bringing up Peterson's position as an apparent idol of the incel movement. He also went on to psychoanalyze Vladimir Putin, whom he's never met, made some comments about how everyone in the world is a bit like Hitler.
Bit of Hitler and everyone? Really?
There's more than a bit.
Really?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, well, why would have Nazism spread the way it did?
Then complained about the fuzz getting called on him when he visited a British school. It was the kind of weird, contentious interview Uncensored was designed to air.
We can't win against Vladimir Putin anyways, because you cannot win against someone you cannot say no to. Period. And we can't say no to Putin because we sold our soul for his oil and gas. And we did that to elevate our moral stature in relationship to saving the planet.
Number 3. Alex Jones. Piers Morgan has clashed with conspiracy theorist Alex Jones many times in the past, largely because Morgan is in favour of gun safety in contrast to Jones' pro-gun stance.
If I deserve to die for questioning a mass shooting, then what happens to the big companies that sold these poison shots that weren't approved and weren't safe and didn't protect us?
Here's my question.
The interview revolved around the tragic Sandy Hook school shooting that happened in the US in 2012, which Alex Jones has notoriously lied about so extensively he was sued by the victims' parents for defamation. The total damages Jones has been ordered to pay in the lawsuits now comes to $1 billion.
You sent me a list of topics.
Let me finish.
You sent me a list of topics.
I'm going to come to those.
I said I'd come on, and one of them is Sandy Hook. I'm on for an hour. Let's talk about the Davos group.
Yes.
Let's talk about the war in Ukraine. Let's talk about internet censorship.
Alex.
Let's talk about the vaccines.
But Jones didn't like being asked about Sandy Hook again and furiously demanded Morgan change the subject to something else, like his vaccine conspiracies, or how everyone should buy his book.
It's one of the reasons.
There was no marketing.
It's the reason.
You know what I make millions of dollars off of?
It's
my
the
number
reason,
one book.
It's the
on
reason.
The world selling stage.
Number 2. Psychic. In Prince Harry's memoir Spare, he talks about the time he talked to a psychic who knew his mother about her death.
You've got to remember, I know him or spoke to him because of his grief.
And that psychic was none other than psychic Sally Morgan, the UK's most famous, or infamous, spirit medium, depending on how skeptical you are. Sally apparently advised Prince Harry to go talk to one of Diana's sisters instead of asking her his questions.
And then he said, I really need to know, what do you think about my mother's death? And I just said to him, I was a bit shocked, and I thought, well, it's not my place to give him my thoughts.
In the wake of his book being published, Sally began doing the rounds on television. This included on Uncensored, in which she discussed how she knew the royals. She also speculated that William and Harry would never reconcile and said that Harry calls Wills bruv.
We spoke for a long, long time. He wanted to know how his brother, he said, my bruv, how will my bruv be?
Number 1. Trump walks out. For years, Morgan has boasted about his supposed close relationship with former US President Donald Trump. And as such, an interview with Trump was aired as the very first episode of Uncensored.
Let's finish up the interview.
Morgan versus Trump.
Turn the camera off.
It was promoted relentlessly, with clickbait clips of Trump apparently storming out of the room circulating online. In the end, it was far less dramatic, although Morgan still persuaded Trump to broach topics like Meghan Markle in the same breath as Vladimir Putin.
Putin uses the N-word. I call it the N-word. He uses the N-word, the nuclear word, all the time. That's a no-no. You're not supposed to do that.
Trump retaliated, however, by saying the interview had gone on for ages and the whole clip was edited to be misleading.
So what did you do
And
with
instead
that?
of, excuse me, it's a little complicated.
He didn't storm out. He just left because the interview was over. Piers lied to boost ratings.
That was a great interview.
Yeah, it was fun.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Turn the camera off.
Do you agree with our picks? Check out this other recent clip from WatchMojoUK and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.